we're experiencing, what would be termed as state terrorism or legal terrorism in that sense, in the sense that the state itself is now slowly metamorphosizing into the types of dictatorships we've seen in the past. Let's take even Samuel Doe, for instance. This is someone who sort of slowly, in phases, became a dictator.
There have been talks of this agreement being backed by the UAE. Funny enough, immediately after that, Kenya receives an amount on loans from the UAE in the tune of billions. If you put two and two together, it looks like a very orchestrated scheme where RSF is in the country, not for political or goodwill, but for some hidden interests that I cannot speak right now.
Radio Kikao, Radio Kikao, Radio Kikao, South Africa.
I will start with you, Peter. We're gonna begin with the issue to do with the Social Health Authority. This is the current insurance policy that the government of Kenya has currently rolled out to help patients cover their costs of treatment. Kumekuwa na tashwishi na hii Social Health Authority ya kwamba unapata Wakenya wengi wameweza kujitokeza kwenye mitandao kusema ya kwamba hii Social Health Authority is not helpful to them, ya kwamba wanaenda mahospitali lakini unapata kwao kuweza kupata matibabu they have to go into their pockets, kutoa pesa ndani ya mifuko na kuweza kulipia haya matibabu. Na sasa tumeweza kuona ya kwamba clinical officers nchi nzima wameweza kwenda kwenye migomo kusema ya kwamba hii social health is also putting them at risk, because they also are not sure whether they can be able to get paid whatever it is that they're supposed to get paid, because the social health itself is not remitting any funds to both public and private hospitals. So what's your opinion on that?
Right, thank you. The Social Health Authority platform, as it was emphasized and thought about, seemed to be, at first, was a good idea, because it was supposed to safeguard the citizens, mostly who are the lower end of the social income bracket, and it was supposed to cushion them in such a way that even if you are not able to pay the minimum 300 shillings, the government would still come in and cater for you. But what we are seeing is that it was an idea which was not very well thought out, because now we are realizing that, as you put it, it's not really sustainable. It's not sustainable both for let me say the patients, and it will not be sustainable for the health workers as well. And so we had a system initially, the National Health Insurance Fund, NHIF, which in my view was working pretty well until, the Kenya Kwanza government decided to come in with SHA. And of course, if you are salaried, it was supposed to take 2.7% of your gross income to cater for this other end, let me call it that. But we're seeing that, on paper, it seemed to look very nice, but obviously it was not very well thought out. So perhaps we need to even think of a scenario where perhaps we should revert to what we had before. We should revert to NHIF, because truth be told, and again, in my view, there wasn't really a big problem with it. If it's not broke, don't fix it. If it's not broke, don't fix it. So SHA, in my view, needs to be reviewed, and we need to just go back to what we had initially, because it's not sustainable.
Right. Hivi majuzi tuliweza kusikia Bwana Rais akisema ya kwamba bima hii ya afya ya SHA ya kwamba wameileta ili waweze kuondoa matapeli ambao walikuwa wanatumia ile system ya NHIF, where unapata mahospitali wanaitisha false claims kutoka kwa serikali kusema ya kwamba that they've treated a certain number of patients and they are claiming this amount of money from the government. Lakini wakati ambapo unapata serikali na Ministry of Health wanafanya uchunguzi, wanapata ya kwamba actually these people were not treated at these hospitals, and most of these hospitals do not actually exist in physical form, that they are briefcase hospitals. They are registered but they do not exist. So Leon, allow me to bring you in. Do you think that bringing in SHA to solve the issue of let me call them fraudulent claims is the president really trying to solve this problem with SHA, or should NHIF have remained the way it was so that he can just solve the entire problem as NHIF worked as it did?
Yes, thank you once more, Teddy, for hosting us. And I will agree with my brother Peter that NHIF was working. System ya NHIF ilikuwa inatumika vizuri, na pia ilikuwa inawafanyia Wakenya wote. Alafu sasa ndio kumekuwa na hizi situation ambayo utapata kuna fraudulent claims. Like for example, nitawapa example moja yenye mimi personally nilideal na DPP. Kulikuwa na there was a case that fraudulent claims where they will take old women and men, wanawapeleka wanawafanyisha surgeries, and then they claim very high amounts. Yes, there were these cases, na ndio tulizideal nazo, and those were administrative issues. But now ukiangalia system ya NHIF the way it worked, for the common mwananchi ulikuwa tu kila mwezi unatakikana utoe 500, and some of these people ilikuwa inafika 6,000 kwa mwezi, kwa mwaka I mean. Na hii ungepata kuwa mzazi ama ule mtu mwenye ako na uwezo angelipia mtu mmoja ama watu wawili for a whole year atago, ndio ukienda hospitalini unapata matibabu bila shida. But bwana president, bwana rais alikuwa anasema kuwa ukiangalia kuna fraudulent claims, and then kuna watu kule NHIF walikuwa wanafanya mambo yao. Nitawakumbusha tu, or in my opinion, this is an administrative issue. When you have administrative issues, you do not break down the whole system.
Right.
You can always fix the system. And as you said, the remittances are not being received by the private and the public hospitals. Yet, kila mwezi wanaofanya kazi wakiangalia wanakatwa hii pesa. So hii pesa inakatwa inaenda wapi na inatumika vipi? Mpaka juzi tuwaona watu wakilia kwenye matelevisheni yetu wa dialysis kama sahi. The new rates facility inapata tu only 1,990. This is very little to cover dialysis. The hospital cannot survive this. So it is a matter that needs to be re-examined. Na waiangalie tena, na ndio iko na issue, but it is being downplayed as a non-issue.
Naam, thank you very much. Mike, allow me to bring you in, Mike.
Okay.
Bwana Leon has mentioned that ya kwamba kila mwezi wafanyikazi wote kwa serikali, wanaofanya kazi ndani ya serikali na pia wale ambao wanafanya kazi kwa private sector wanakatwa hii pesa ya SHA. Lakini venye Leon anauliza ya kwamba hii pesa ambayo inakatwa inaenda wapi? Kama hii pesa hailipwi kwa mahospitali na haiwezi kulipa mishahara na kununua madawa na all these other administrative tasks that are supposed to be carried out in this hospital, in these institutions, where is this money going to? Do you believe that this entire thing is another scandal in the making, just as Kenya has had many other scandals? Or what are your thoughts?
Okay, thank you so much. I think the idea of having a national health insurance policy began during the Kibaki administration. That was where the idea about having it came when Charles Ngilu was the Minister for Health. I remember very well at that time. But there were certain bottlenecks that emerged about the cost, about how it's going to be rolled out, and all those sort of things. But every administration since Kibaki, through the Uhuru administration and also the Ruto's administration, at first they began the trials under the Uhuru administration, But what made it not to actually being turned into something that was finally be able to serve the people is a matter of how it was rolled out. They did the thematics very well in terms of identifying certain counties of which they can be able to now gather the total national information concerning that program. But now coming to SHIF under the Ruto administration, I think the idea was good, but how it was rolled out, how it was thought out from the beginning to the end, it was has contributed to this problem that we are witnessing right now. Because from my understanding, from how I see it, it's like it was conceived only for business interests, because they never thought it from the start to the end. Because if you tell me now, as maybe people are contributing, they are saying, or when they go to the hospital, they say there are so many downtimes. So you ask yourself, why is it that there are so many downtimes? It means, or it can be suspected to be, that when there are so many downtimes, maybe somebody is pilfering some funds somewhere. Then again, it waits until maybe the next time, maybe the following day, there are no downtimes. It is functioning so well. So I believe there was nothing so much bad about the NHIF, as my brother said, Peter, because they said that it required just a few millions to upgrade it, not the 104 billion that has been used to start this new scheme. So I still believe that something can be done that can be able to make it much more efficient, much more people-friendly, and much more people-centered. But hopefully, they're going to merge heads. People are going to think through it thoroughly and also objectively, and so that everything will be put in place.
Right, thank you. Yes. Bwana Ibrahim, asante sana kwa kujiunga nasi. Labda nikuulize wewe kutoka maeneo ya pwani. Hii SHA, na labda kama waweza kuongea na majirani zako ama familia yako ama pia wewe kibinafsi, hii SHA imeweza inafanya kazi? Je, inasaidia watu ambao wanaenda mahospitalini kutafuta hizi services za kutibiwa?
Shukran Teddy. Kuhusu ili jambo la SHA, kusema ukweli, tangu ifumbuliwe anatumaini Oktoba mwaka jana, sijasikia jambo jema kulihusu hata moja. Kila mtu utakayepatana naye mwenye ametafuta matibabu, yeye walalamika tu, mara pesa, mara hospitali zimesuspend services za SHA, mara madaktari wanagoma, serikali watumii pesa zao. Yani watu wote wenye nimepatana nao wenye wameenda hospitali wanalia. Na pia juzi naangalia nikaona pia Rural and Urban Private Hospital Association ili highlight kuwa 54% ya hospitali hazijapokea hela zao kutoka kwa SHA, na asilimia 89 wameripoti kuwa yani SHA hiyo portal yao imekuwa iko na vizuizi, iko na mashida, hawezi deliver services zao vizuri. Na hii situation to me it raises questions about the efficiency and transparency of SHA operations, na the lack of timely payments and system failures suggest potential mismanagement. Kama venye alivyosema Leon, hii wangeacha ile NHIF badala ya kuibomoa. Ile manake ilikuwa ni administrative issues, badala ya kuibomoa nyingine ni mpya, kwa hiyo imekuja na some challenges zenye hawakuwa expect. Ndio manake wananchi wanazidi kuulia, na nasikia baya sana pia kuna wenye wanapoteza maisha yao kuhusu hizi operations za SHA zenye zina fail. Kwa hiyo kwangu mimi na pwani pia naona kila mtu yualia kuhusu SHA. Kwa hiyo sioni kama ina manufaa. Kwa hiyo wanafaa kuiangalia vizuri sana.
Asante. Peter, allow me to ask you, do you think that sasa when political figures, case in point, I think a week ago I was listening to the former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, who was saying that the whole Adani thing that was going on, where William Ruto is said to have brought in Gautam Adani, the Indian investor, and that there's some sort of connection between this SHA and the Adani scandal, and that maybe the entire thing was created as a way of looting public money from Kenyans, and it wasn't really created for service delivery. Was this just political talk, or is that something that can actually be substantiated from your perspective? Do you think this is political talk?
Right. It's very interesting that those sentiments came from the former deputy president Rigathi Gachagua, because he was part of the Kenya Kwanza system. He was part of the Kenya Kwanza government. And the fact is that Adani was meant to invest quite a large sum into the SHA project. So it wouldn't come as a surprise if, yes, Adani not being in the picture in one way or another affected the sustainability of SHA. And we're now seeing the cut. And in my view, the chicken has really come home to roost. And like I said, let me reiterate, NHIF was working pretty well, but it seemed that there was some vested interest, and SHA was only brought into the picture for, like Mike suggested, for business purposes. And so with Adani not being in the picture, obviously there are going to be repercussions, there are going to be political repercussions, there are going to be economic repercussions as well. And I think we're just seeing them roll out slowly by slowly.
Right. All right, Leon, allow me to bring you in as we switch gears now onto East African politics and our diplomatic relations with our neighbors. So a few days ago, we saw the rebel group, or the sanctioned rebel group, the RSF from Sudan, signing agreements in Nairobi, Kenya. And these agreements were signed so that they can put together a parallel government that would, run side by side with their enemies, for lack of a better word, with their enemies. That is the Sudanese government. And the signing of this agreement and all these things that have been happening on Kenyan soil have not sat well with a lot of people. Just recently, before she launched her newly rebranded party, the People's Liberations Party leader, Martha Karua, said that maybe now that we are seeing these sanctioned rebel groups operating from Kenya, that there's a broader scheme. There's a broader scheme of the sitting president to maybe cling on to power. She said that this has been done before. We've seen it happen before in many countries, including in Congo and in Niger as well. Do you think that this is also just politics by Martha Karua? And also, number two, do you think that it was actually a diplomatic blunder for William Ruto to let the sanctioned, the sanctioned rebels to operate from Nairobi and sign all these agreements in Nairobi, and at the same time, Kenya remains to be a non-NATO ally with the United States, and the same country that has sanctioned these leaders and everyone who's part of the RSF from ever traveling to the United States?
Yes, thank you, Teddy. I'll begin with the second one, where you call it a diplomatic blunder, and I do agree with you. We have a PS, Dr. Singoe, who recently, on the same matter, shared a deepfake AI video backing the same, which looked like he was looking for legitimacy as to what his government was doing. Our track record over the past few weeks has exposed us and showed us that we are not seated in a good place as a country, both with our neighbors and with the with Africa in general. Allowing a foreign state, rebels, to come and form a parallel government in your state, when the government of the day in that country does not agree to it, and actually there were talks of the ambassador being recalled back to their country, the Sudan ambassador. So This shows you that Mr. Singoe is not giving the right advice to our president. And when you look at it, the questions were being asked: who made Kenya the prefect of East Africa? Why is our president taking the lead on a matter that the country itself does not want to initiate itself? We are a NATO ally. That means that we should not be having tea or having breakfast sitting on the table with people who are sanctioned. When you look at the person who is leading the RSF himself, he has been sanctioned. When you look at the effect that this has on us, is that our neighbors look at us not as allies, but as people who are supporting governments that will seek to topple them. They see us as their enemy. Martha Karua, the party leader for PLP, has made some claims, and this is a dangerous trajectory. It has been seen before, and I think that we have a really good constitution that does not allow one to cling to power. But in the event that that is not the trajectory they're looking at, it will be a very dangerous and a catastrophic one. It is a diplomatic blunder when you look at it. RSF has been sanctioned, and these people are coming to our country, being welcomed, and being allowed to form a parallel government. That in itself is a soft coup when you look at it, because why are we giving legitimacy to a parallel government? In international law, we have a concept called recognition. States become validated through recognition. The act by our president is giving recognition to a parallel government, and the current government in Sudan does not see this as a good way, or as a good thing. And when you look at it, there have been talks of this agreement being backed by the UAE. Funny enough, immediately after that, Kenya receives an amount or loans from the UAE in the tune of billions. If you put two and two together, it looks like a very orchestrated scheme where RSF is in the country, not for political or goodwill, but for some hidden interests that I cannot speak right now. But I do feel like it is a diplomatic blunder.
Right. Mike, allow me to bring you in.
Yes.
Leon has mentioned that the RSF are not they're not a legitimate government. They were not voted in by the people. This is a rebel group, that has been sanctioned, and they've been accused of many things. And most recently, we saw women in Sudan who were throwing themselves into rivers and dams so that they could drown, because they knew that once the RSF soldiers got to them, they would be assaulted. And I'm pretty sure they would have been assaulted sexually as well. So seeing that the RSF have such a bad reputation, not just locally but also internationally, do you think that William Ruto, and just as Leon has mentioned, the UAE, are there ulterior motives that we cannot see as the people of Kenya, and that when you put two and two together, you can see where this is headed?
Okay, thank you so much. I'll start from the premise that since independence, Kenya has been an unaligned country in regards to global politics, global affairs, and how it projects itself around Africa and around the world. Because the reason as to why the Kenyan government came up with that position, because they want to have that brotherly and cohesive relationships with other countries. Number two, concerning the diplomatic blunder that President Ruto has engaged Kenya in, I want to give it weight by saying that William Ruto doesn't have the exposure. He hasn't traveled the world so much to be able to backslap those leaders, being able to sit with them, negotiate with them, know them by their names and what they stand for. So when he came to the presidency, he was green, and it affects is that he could have hired people who are knowledgeable about geopolitics, about the African continent policy. Then again, he should not pretend to be like a prefect controlling the East African countries and Africa to project that element of strength and projecting power around the world. Because akona naweza isema ukimbelembele mingi. He wants to project that Kenya is now back on the world stage. They want to project that they have this to offer to the rest of the world. So I think that was a diplomatic blunder, number one, allowing RSF to come and sign those documents in Kenya. Apparently I heard that there are some news in circulation that we have been blocked from exporting tea to Sudan because of
Yes.
what William Ruto decided to offer them a platform of which they are going to sign that deal. So it means all these things that he's doing in terms of foreign policy, it is reverberating back to the country in a negative light. So it means he has to go back and sit down with these professionals. They should not look at long-term projections, but what is in the best interest of the country moving forward. Coming back to what Martha Karua said just the other day, I saw that interview on JKL that he might use the RSF to maintain or to cling into power. What I might say is that politics is a game of possibilities, and from William Ruto's history since the YK 92, all over that period of time till he has been president, he is not somebody that has been known to like straightforward things. He has been using, kwa Kiswahili tunasema, njia ya mkato, so that he be able to arrive to what he desires. So I tend to agree with what Martha put forward the other day, but I cannot have that concrete evidence kwamba atafanya hivyo, lakini yetu itakuwa macho tu kuangalia vile atakuwa ana move. I think that is my opinion regarding that situation.
Naam. Asante.
Yes.
Ibrahim, wacha nikulete sasa. Ningependa kujua maoni yako kwamba tumesema ya kwamba Kenya imekuwa kwa miaka michache ambayo bwana Ruto amekuwa rais, kumekuwa na diplomatic blunders. Tumeona ya kwamba alikuwa mwanasiasa wa miaka nyingi wa chama cha upinzani kule Uganda, Kizza Besigye, aliweza kutekwa nyara Kenya usiku wa manane, akiwa ndani ya hoteli yake, kutekwa nyara na kupelekwa kutoka Nairobi mpaka Kampala, na kisha akaweza kufungiwa katika jela ya katika jela ya Army. Tumeona pia kulikuwa na mwanahabari wa Tanzania ambaye alikuwa ametekwa nyara kwa masaa, ingawa haikuwa masaa mengi, aliweza kutekwa nyara na waliodhaniwa kuwa ni maaskari wa serikali ya Tanzania. Sasa looking at all these things, unaona ya kwamba hizi diplomatic blunders ndio zile ambazo zilimfanya bwana Ruto kukataliwa na Waafrika, wakati ambapo marais wa Afrika walipiga kura za African Union na kumkataa Raila Odinga.
Naam, ndio. Venye hapo nyuma mwenzangu amesema kuwa ni kama sisi wa Kenya sasa tumeanza kuonekana kwa tuna vindele, tuko na kibele mbele fulani, tunataka kukua kama sisi ni godfather wa kila mtu hapa Afrika. Yani tunapenda kumendolina issues za watu, na kama tunavyojua diplomacy is a critical tool for any nation, shaping its global standing, trade relations na regional influence. But sasa hapa Kenya we have made in the past 2 months we've made a lot of diplomatic mistakes that have raised concern about our foreign policy direction, maybe credibility and strategic interest. So kama hiyo ya Uganda umesema, Uganda ni majirani wetu, na kwa njia moja au nyingine kuna venye tuwasaidiana. Kiangalia pia kuna intermarriages kati yetu na Uganda, na hizi ni relationship, hawa ni watu wanafaa kukua kama close allies kwetu, na sisi tukianza kusaidia serikali yao kukiuka sheria za haki na kuteka watu nyara, mara kusaidia watu kuchukuliwa hapa Kenya bila kutumia channels zenye zinatakikana. Kama ni mtu amefanya makosa, si anafaa kuchukuliwa kwa njia imekubalika kisheria. Kwa hizi naona ni mojawapo ya vitu vilivyochangia kwa kufanya kule AUC vitu vikaenda vikalemea. Manake hakuna mtu anaweza taka anataka kutenganishwa na serikali yenye inajaribu kukiuka. Na hii miezi miwili imepita, tumekuwa tukifanya vitu ambavyo hata sisi wenyewe pia havitupendezi. Na ni juzi tu nadhani our diplomatic chief, naweza mwita huo PS Sing'oei, aliweza kapost video yenye ambayo ni deepfake. Kama mtu kama huyo ni mtu mwenye anafaa kuwa makini. Inaonyesha kuwa hatujaandika watu wenye wako na hiyo taaluma ya diplomacy. Kwa hiyo ni kama ni kazi zilipeanwa kwa kujuana tu, manake hizi diplomatic blunders zimekuwa mingi. Kama tangu mwaka uanze nadhani sasa ni 3, na hiyo ni nyingi sana. Na hiyo sasa kama sasa hivyo venye mwenzangu ametoka kusema hapo nyuma, hatuwezi tukubali kupeleka kwenda kuuza chai Sudan, na ili ni soko na kuna Wakenya wataumia kwa hilo. Kwa hiyo sasa tena ni kutafuta soko. Kwa hiyo mimi naona hii diplomatic missteps ni one of the reasons AUC ilitulemea.
Now, Peter, allow me to ask you, do you think that the recent AUC elections and the recent the recent diplomatic blunders that William Ruto has made, where you saw even with the conflicts in the Congo, and the Congolese people and the Congolese government have issues with the French government, but once the M23 had taken over South Kivu, William Ruto made a call to the French government, the French president, and he said on his Twitter account that he had briefed him on the situation. Do you think that all these things, looking at the situation with the Congo war, looking at the situation with the abductions that are happening, especially the abductions of foreigners in Kenya? I mean, we saw even there were some Turkish nationals who were, abducted and deported out of the country while they actually were legally supposed to be here. Do you think that all these things are what have led to Kenya losing the AUC bid?
Right. As a country, Kenya, we are signatories to various treaties. We've ratified certain international treaties, and we are part of a system. So looking at what has been happening in the recent past with Gen Z and the kidnappings and everything, Kiza BCJ being abducted as well and taken to Uganda, we're experiencing what would be termed as state terrorism or legal terrorism in that sense, in the sense that the state itself is now slowly metamorphosizing into the types of dictatorships we've seen in the past. Let's take even Samuel Doe, for instance. This is someone who sort of slowly in phases became a dictator. And so obviously, if you look at what has been happening in the country with even DRC and the Kenyan president's position on various policy issues regarding how Rwanda is relating with DRC, there are obviously going to be repercussions for that. And one of those, that kind of repercussion, one of the consequences of that was obviously going to be AUC and Raila Odinga's candidature and him not actually clinching that. So all these things have, in one way or another, led to Kenya being in a very awkward position. Let me put it that way. The fact that we lost AUC was just one angle. But my take is we are about to see various, geopolitical realignments within the region happening, especially in East Africa. And obviously this is going to have political ramifications on how even resources are shared, or even how we relate with each other, not only diplomatically, because yes, Addis Ababa is our quote-unquote diplomatic capital, but we're going to see a lot of realignments within East Africa because of our own position as a country. Obviously Kenya is at a unique position because economically we are also a powerhouse. So I do not agree with the sentiments that our president is acting in a quote-unquote Kierere kind of manner. We actually meant to be kind of a big brother in East Africa for obvious reasons, and especially economic reasons. But there are obviously limits to that. There are obviously limits to our involvement in certain things. There are obviously consequences for our utterances in certain issues. There are obviously going to be consequences for leaders posting information which is not credible, and that shows very badly on the in entire leadership of the country. So yes, all these things had consequences on Raila Odinga's candidature and him losing the AUC seat. But all in all, we're experiencing, in my view, what we call state terrorism. The PLP leader Martha Karua, in my view, is very right that she has genuine concerns, and a lot of people, myself included, have very genuine concerns about the direction this is taking, because you cannot invite a rebel group to your country to form a parallel government to another country. That is going to obviously have very negative consequences. So, yes, I do agree with Martha Karua on that. Thank you.
And I mean, if you look at the reputation that Kenya has had, not just in Africa but across the world, that reputation is being eroded day by day. In the last 2 years, if we really sit down and count the amount of mishaps that have been there with this current regime of William Ruto, you'd realize that the amount of damage that has been done cannot really be undone in another one term. It's gonna take a lot of years, especially with the African nations that sort of see us as traitors, that we've betrayed them. Rebuilding trust, especially amongst nations, is gonna be difficult. The other day I was talking to a young lady from Tanzania, and she was telling me that there's always been a love-hate relationship between Kenyans and Tanzanians, but right now it's 100% hate relationship between Tanzanians and us, because they sort of believe that the amount of betrayal that the Kenyan government has betrayed other African countries, they cannot forgive that. So it's gonna take years, to even erase this what you're calling domestic terrorism. It's gonna take years. Let's switch up to local politics. We saw that once the old man Raila Odinga, that is the former principal of the Azimio la Umoja coalition, lost the AUC bid. He came back to Kenya, and before he came back, he actually traveled to Dubai. Lord knows what he was doing there. Then he came back. And he met the president, right, at State House Mombasa. And during that meeting, when they were, briefing the press, Mr. Odinga said something that, sort of created an entire puzzle around it. That he said that now I'm back in Kenya and I'm going to consult my friends and my allies. We've known Raila Odinga to play a lot of games politically. He's a man who's his craftsmanship when it comes to mind games in politics is unmatched. I mean, Raila, he's been in almost every government that has been there, other than the first government of Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, but he's been there in every other government. Now, when he talks about consulting, do you think that this word consulting is just another way of Raila Odinga pulling out the BBI card, but this time around pulling it out with a NADCO report? Because there was a NADCO report that was put in place during the first Mandamano that happened after the general elections, that was backed by the United States representative, that was the former United States representative Meg Whitman. Now that Mr. Odinga is back, is he going to pull that card of the NADCO report that now he wants to have dialogue just to to keep the nation in a puzzle before we get to the next election? And is this whole thing geared towards him supporting William Ruto? Because he already has his people in government. They're there in cabinet and in parastatals. I'll start with you, Peter.
Right, thank you. In my view, I think Raila Odinga is just trying to remain relevant. The fact of the matter is that he lost his AUC bid, and he lost miserably. The fact that he already sacrificed his quote unquote political orphans to the government, the John Mbadis, the Opio and I's, just goes to show that he's just trying to sort of get the Orengos and the Sifunas on board to support the same, because he's more or less benefiting politically from the Kenya Kwanza government for obvious reasons. But I think him trying to pull any other similar card to BBI, or talks of prime ministership, I think that is just flourishing unnecessarily. I think Raila Odinga will always be a statesman. I think Raila Odinga will always be our old man to seek wise counsel from. But from where I'm sitting, Raila Odinga need to just retire politically, and basically just offer what I call political consultancy. He just needs to take a backseat, take a chill pill, and realize that he already sold his party to government, and people are allowed to rebel, and they're obviously going to be political rebels. James Orengo and the Edwin Sifunas are just examples, and he cannot dictate, because what we're seeing happening in ODM is just dictatorship. It's basically toe my line, it's my way or the highway, and this is what the kind of fits and starts he had with even Langata MP or Felix Jalango, Felix Oduor, where we saw him not being very excited about him, Felix and the rest of the game MP Alicia Odhiambo going to State House without quote unquote permission and everything. But now, he's the number one cheerleader of the Kenya Kwanza government. So I think Raila Odinga is just looking for political relevance, and he just needs to take a chill pill and engage again in what I call political consultancy. Thank you.
Right. So he should start his own political consultancy firm now. He'd make a lot of money.
Exactly.
He'd make a lot of money. Leon, I've kept in the call for too long. Let me bring you in. As Peter has said, that Raila Odinga he should retire, that he's done with national politics and he should now stick to offering consultancy. What are your thoughts on that? And also, do you think that his call for political consultation, where he has to go back to his allies and his friends, is this just a way of him just dragging this whole thing all along so that he can support William Ruto at the end, or is he maybe suffering from shame that he lost an election and he does not want to, as Peter has said, take a chill pill? What are your thoughts? Leon.
Oh, Leon. Okay.
I thought we were talking about Mike, since you said he's been in the code for a bit.
Oh, so I had mentioned your name. Sorry for that.
Okay.
Oh, all right. So, I will agree with you. Personally, I come from the Western region, and when you look at the Western region, the ule ukitaka kuwania ugombeaji wa kitu chochote kule Western, ODM imeshika kule Western Nyanza. So ukitaka kuwania kitu chochote lazima upitie kwake baba. Vijana ule uchaguzi umepita walisema wametekwa nyara na baba. Walisema baba hawaachi wapande cheo, wapande wajisimamie. Most of them had to go independent. So when you look at it and what you're saying, our right honorable retired Prime Minister Raila Odinga, as you correctly put it, he reprimanded Felix Oduor Jalango for going to State House. And as you can see right now, he is the biggest supporter of the president. It is, people call it from number one to go to State House, you are washed of your sins, and now it is okay to go to State House. Apparently before, it was not. The Prime Minister, former Prime Minister, alisema kwamba tarehe leo ata-announce ama atasema mwongozo ama atasema mwelekeo wake. Nimekuwa kotini leo siku nzima, sijasikia so nini ndio mtampa uhondo ambao umetokea kwa leo. But what I can tell you from my point of view, as time goes by, the Prime Minister has been a rock solid foundation kwa hii nchi yetu. Prime Minister amepigania vitu mingi. Kule kwetu Busia tumeona lami mzima mara ya kwanza 2007 kwa ile kwa nusu mpate sana, lakini huu muungano wake na rais wa sasa, it is not looking good on him. Anaenda kujibu legacy ambayo baba amekuwa na legacy nzuri sana, na pia amesaidia kwa mengi. Hapa ambapo yuko saa hii kuna tatizo. Nitapitisha tena Mike.
Asante. Mike, if you can come in.
Yes. Thank you so much. So my take on Raila's political stand, it can weave a bit from what I've heard my colleagues saying. But number one is that Raila has been known to be an enigma in Kenyan politics. And I usually tell people that when a politician talks, don't listen to what he's saying or she is saying. Listen to what he or she is not saying. Then you'll get the gist of what that person means. So coming back to Raila Odinga after AUC, for a politician, good publicity, bad publicity is okay with them.
It's all
they
publicity.
Don't take yes, it's all publicity. So coming to what he portends to do in future, what I'm trying to say is that you might look at it from three angles. Number one, he might be pitting Sifuna Orengo and Opiyo and I and the other group, so that they might look to be fighting each other. But at the end of it all, they'll come back under one banner. Secondly, he might be preparing himself for running again in 2027. So that, 2 years is a long time in politics. Anything can happen. It's not like 3 months or 5 months to the election. If Ruto doesn't show the goodwill on implementing whatever they have agreed, he might decide to back out of that arrangement. Number three, he's looking at his legacy. He knows the time is up, but now he has not decided which person to endorse as his preferred or heir apparent in terms of who is going to succeed him, because he has a large base across the country. So he has to look at it carefully, who is going to take up from him, because his base is big. You have seen today when he landed in Busia, you saw the mammoth crowd. He still has the magic touch. So despite him losing at the AUC, he still has the magic touch, and also he has the goodwill among some core supporters of his. So I think you can never write off Raila Odinga in the political chessboard of Kenya. But let us keep our eyes focused on what is coming next after what has happened today in Busia. Yes. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much. Ibrahim, labda nikulete hapa. Waona ya kwamba hii mambo yote Raila anasema ya kwamba ati anafanya consultations hapa, anaongea na mama mboga pale Busia, aende Masaini aongee na yule jamaa anayechunga mbuzi, akuje Nairobi aongee na Makanga na kina nani. Waona haya yote mambo ambayo anayafanya, it's just to to prolong the entire process and to just buy more time so that he can eventually maybe endorse someone else, or maybe even endorse the current president.
Raila Odinga, as we know him, I don't think ataendorse mtu. I think this guy is just greedy for power, and he has been losing for I think now this is the 6th time, including the AUC. So I'm sure he'll run again, but as we know, the political climate, I'm not sure if he'll make it this time round. Though hizi zote I think it's just chess to him. Anajaribu tu ndo ili to speculate vitu, but he'll run again. So I think his fate is sealed, despite the criticism from prominent ODM members like Orengo and Sifuna. Well, we know Raila continues to engage in consultations with President Ruto. Now, hiyo is one of the reasons why I think it will be difficult for him to come back again. But this approach may be driven by a desire, to foster national unity. But I think it's delusional kwake akifikiria that is trying to foster national unity, because people already see him as a sellout by hijacking the whatever happened in June. He maybe is also trying to influence policies from within the government. But these strategies zenye naona najaribu ziko na risk, which includes potential alienation of his traditional support base and question about his political legacy. As per now, I think it's tarnished, his political legacy. So balancing collaboration with maintaining a distinct political identity is kind of crucial for him, but sidhani if he'll be here to stay for long. His legacy it's kind of imekuwa tampered with at the last moment. So hii yote is just chess, but I'm sure he'll just run for it again.
Leon, allow me to ask, do you think that after the June 25th protests, the nationwide protests, where we saw people not just from the capital city of Nairobi, but even in the remote parts of Kwale County, people came out in large numbers to protest against the controversial finance bill. Do you think that since that day, the entire political arena has shifted, and Raila Odinga's political base is now more disrupted than ever, that if he does not appease the young people of this country, even if he does run for president again, he might actually not win?
Thank you so much. I'll start by sharing a little bit of what we are taught in constitutional law in first year. We are taught that power comes from the people, and that is very, very emboldened kwa katiba yetu, Article 1. All sovereign power belongs to the people, na inakuwa exercised directly or indirectly. So what we have is indirect. Hii system ya government, judiciary, executive. The people of Kenya, especially the Gen Zs, went to the streets na waka exercise ile power directly. What they did was give the government of the day a vote of no confidence as regards the finance bill. Then ukiangalia sasa kwa sasa, in 2019 census iliweka the number of youths at 13 million. We are projected by 2025, walikuwa wameproject youth watakuwa 16 million. How many votes does a president have in Kenya? In an election, uchaguzi wa rais huamuliwa na kura kama ngapi? Karibu 5 to 7 to 8. Ukiangalia number ya youth ime double almost hiyo number. So these vile wako na ile speed yenye wako, they have the power ya kumuelect na kumweka kiongozi yoyote wanaotaka pale mbele. Kuna ile mass awakening right now on social media, on all the platforms kwa ground. Unaweza sikia na unaweza ona Gen Z na the youths wamechangamka. They are more aware of what leadership and politics is all about. If the Right Honorable Prime Minister, former retired, asipo jialign ama kujiunga na yale ambayo Gen Z wanataka, wakichukua kura wako na uwezo wa kumweka yoyote wanayotaka kuwa kiongozi wa Kenya. So I will caution the president himself, I will caution the prime minister, mwambie Gen Z si watu wa kuwekwa kando, na pia the youth. The youth ni wale watu ambao watabeba uchaguzi ujao. Thank you.
Naam, thank you very much. Mike, allow me to ask you. So do you, looking at the recent political trajectory and political action that has been happening right now, we are seeing veteran politicians, especially the politicians that were there during the historic elections of 2002. They've all come together, and it now seems that it's going to be some sort of a Moi versus Kibaki moment. We do not know who the Kibaki is right now, but we are seeing that these old guards are coming together to run against William Ruto. Do you think that as Kenya's political youth, because we made our voice heard during the previous protests, and we've seen that consistently our voice has been heard when it comes to very controversial things. I mean, looking at the Adani scandal, it was the whistleblower was a young person. You look at Chief and SHA, whatever it is, it's young people who are actually making the noise, that their parents and their aunties and people kule mashinani wanaumia. Do you think that right now it is very important for the young people of this country to come together, have a political some sort of a political party and political ideologies that is progressive, that is pro-people, and most importantly, it is pro-democracy?
Okay, thank you so much. From my end, I look at it from the historical aspect of it, because now is the time. Since last year, June 25th, there was a conversation. Actually, it began in 2023, but the Kenya Kwanza administration, they never really took it seriously until last year. So from my angle, the way I see it is that the young people have the power, but their power cannot just be about sloganeering alone. Activism alone cannot bring change, but being deliberate and also running for office, passing those necessary laws, pieces of legislation, and enacting that agenda that they truly believe in, that is the most appropriate avenue for change. But also, they have to blend the experience and the knowledge of the old and the energy of the youth, because you cannot just cast away the old guard, because they have been in the game for quite a while. Because now the awakening that you are seeing from the Gen Zs, they might come, but they don't know the history of this country. They should be taken through that course of understanding where the country began from, where it is, and what were the fundamentals that shaped the country then, and what is the most appropriate way they are going to look at the future. That is how I look at it. And also, another thing that I think it might be a hindrance to them is the aspect of tribalism. Tribalism is so much deep in this country. Even if you listen at Mr. Gachagua, how he's talking, the way he's presenting himself, how he's talking about just Mount Kenya, Mount Kenya, Mount Kenya. My question is, what is the rest of the country thinking about that? And I usually tell people, if they can't, if they focus on William Ruto's ills and they unite as a country, they'll have a greater chance of removing William Ruto. But if they go back to the tribal aspect of it, then William Ruto will have a highest chance of going back to that seat. So kuna ule ukenya lazima watu wakue nao if they want to bring change. So I think I'll end it at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Peter, do you agree with what Mike has said, that if the political class continue relying on drumming up political support from just their tribal backgrounds, that it might actually favor William Ruto?
Right. Things are really changing, and they're changing fast in this country. We are seeing a demographic of young people who are not really concerned about ethnic extraction, and they happen to be the majority. So what is slowly happening is that there's a reawakening. There's a complete paradigm shift. Initially, politicians were aligning themselves according to from various ethnic backgrounds, but this is slowly changing, and you're realizing that there's a new language here. There's a new lingo. So I do not agree that politicians who will stick to their ethnic cocoons will still have a field day as they used to have initially. In my view, there's been a demographic sort of change, and things will shift, and they're shifting very fast. The conversation will not be about, I am tribe X or tribe Y anymore. The conversation will be about, so how are we benefiting from these leaders? How are they making our lives better? It will not happen in one electioneering period. It may not happen in two electioneering periods, but eventually it will happen. It will happen. The same way politicians sold us ethnic politics is the same way Gen Z are now driving the conversation, and they are saying that we are the bosses now, and we are driving the conversation. So I do not agree with the sentiment that politicians who are aligning themselves based on ethnic extraction will still have a field. That I do not agree for reasons I've just put forward.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So do you think, from your own point of view, because you've written extensively about national politics, and you're well versed with national politics, do you think that if the young people of this country, from the most remote parts to the most urbanized areas, that if these young people could find a way to speak in the same language, move in the same direction, by 5 a.m. in the morning at the ballot, they could actually have a chance at clinging power, taking power from current President William Ruto?
Right. Yes, I've written extensively about politics and political change, whether it's in academic journals or newspapers, whether it's in Kenya or Ghana or wherever. The conversation, like I've said, is changing, and eventually this is a movement that is starting to become extremely powerful. So drastically, what is going to happen is that there's going to be a sort of one voice formed, and people are going to speak with one voice, whether it's millennials, whether it's Gen Z, regardless of the ethnic extraction. The mere fact of me being a Luo or a Kikuyu, that's going to be extremely relevant. So yes, whether it's through doing this in the as a columnist in the newspapers, or it's through advocacy, or it's through advocates like Leon, trying to impart knowledge here and there. The conversation is changing, and there's a movement being formed.
Thank you. Ibrahim, sasa wewe ambaye uko yale maeneo ya pwani, haswa vile tuliweza kuona watu wa Kwale, pahali ambapo maisha yangu yote sijawahi sikia kitu inaitwa maandamano ikifanyika Kwale. Tuliona watu wakijitokeza kwa wingi sana, wamama, vijana na wazee, kwenda kwenye mabarabara na kuweka maandamano. Waona ya kwamba sasa nchi imeamka na vijana wameamka, ya kwamba hata yule kijana ambaye yuko kule Kwale ndani atazungumza kwa lugha moja na yule kijana ambaye yuko Nairobi ama yuko Mombasa ama yuko Nakuru, na kwamba hawa vijana wakiongea kwa lugha moja itakuwa ni sekunde chache waweze kumtoa yeyote ambaye yuko amekalia kiti hicho cha urais.
Naam, kweli. Na mojawapo ya sababu ambavyo vijana watazungumza kwa sauti moja ni kuwa sisi sote tunapitia changamoto ambazo zinafanana. Sote hatuna kazi, sote tukienda hospitali tuko na balabala, mara tuwezi lipa, mara SHA imefeli. Sote pia bado wanasiasa wanatupiganisha kulingana na kabila zetu, na they are trying to bring in the politics of division. So ningependa kusema ni the evolving political landscape at the moment present a unique opportunity for us, the Kenyan youths, to assert our influence. Kama tumeona hapo nyuma, the veteran politicians have started forming early coalitions for the 2027 elections. So we the young people, I think we must proactively engage in political processes. Manake hizi social issues zinatu affect. Unemployment rate is all over Kenya, iko juu. si ati ni tunaweza sema ati Nairobi peke yake ndo the unemployment rate is higher than any other part of Kenya. So we are all experiencing the same issues, the same problems. We are all living under the same countries. We all experience tribalism. The same people. I want to call them the old fossils. Wamekuwa, since the 2000s, wamekuwa, they are using the same tactics. Ikifika election periods, it's tribalism and politics, they are pushing it by division, insults. Now, so I think the coming year, 2027, it will be uniform among the youths, because we are all experiencing the same problems. We don't have jobs, we don't have clean water, we have garbages everywhere. Hospitals are not functioning, SHA is not releasing funds. We are seeing people being abducted, not from a single tribe. We are seeing Kikuyus being abducted. Kibet Bull is from the same community as the president, but he was abducted. So we are facing the same issues. So I believe 2027 the youth will speak with the same language.
Thank you. So kila mtu atapata dakika moja just to give us your parting shots, and I will begin with you, Leon.
Thank you so much. So my parting shot will be this. As a nation, we have come from far, and has been mentioned by Mike and Peter and Ibrahim and yourself. We need to know our history, to know where we're going. The nation is in a state where things are not happening. The president needs to go back, sit with his people, and look where they're going. Diplomatic blunders to healthcare, to roads, and everything. So much criticism. The president needs to do that. People also need to sit down, revise hii maneno ya ukabila na hii siasa ya kujitakia, pia tujue tunaelekea wapi. We love our country na tunataka usonge mbele. Sasa all we can do is unite, and if we can find a good leader, let us put him there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mike, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you so much. Finally, my parting shot is that this country needs us. This is our country. We have no any other country. We love our country. But my foremost parting shot is that President William Ruto should have a moment of self-introspection, self-reflection on what has transpired for the last 2 years. He should disregard those people that are surrounding him, that are misadvising him. At times you might have an agenda, but how you present it, show some empathy, show some humility, respect those people, because they're the people who put you there. But hopefully, I think and I believe that things will change for the better for our country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ibrahim, kindly close it for us.
Okay. First of all, thank you, Teddy, for this opportunity. So, as we wrap this up, one thing is clear, by the way. Kenya is at a turning point at the moment, and the issues we have discussed